central bank...
But this was different, yeah.
Trust me, I know you get this, though it's complicated. Yeah. But viewers and listeners should understand that post-COVID QE, created by the Bank of England, was paid directly to firms in C-bill loans and COVID recovery loans and to households in furlough. QE funded furlough, QE funded those C-bill loans, many of which, of course, haven't been recovered.
So government policy with the Bank of England has caused this problem. There's no doubt in my mind about that, nor in yours. And yet the Labour Party don't even challenge them on it.
Almost no mainstream politician talks about QE. One that did, to her credit, she didn't get much right, was Theresa May. She talked a bit about QE in one speech that she gave, and she was... The Bank of England and the economics policy establishment, they came down on her like a ton of bricks.
Well, I knew she must have got something right. Liam, there's no prospect of this ending soon, is there?
Well, it will get worse before it gets better, both in terms of interest rates and mortgage pain. But look, I don't want to be completely alarmist here. I don't think the banks and the building societies are going to go quickly into repossession mode. This mortgage pain will be contained mainly to, I'm afraid, people in their 30s and 40s who have got high mortgage costs. And I do think the banks and the building societies will make it easy for people, extending mortgage durations and loans, moving people seamlessly from repayment mortgage onto interest-only mortgages for a while in order to keep these increases in monthly mortgage payments as low as they possibly can be.
But Liam Halligan says it'll get worse before it gets better. Thank you for joining me. See you in Barnsley tomorrow evening. Now, what does all this mean for you? Is there a mortgage bomb coming for people? Well, one of the points that Liam touched on there is lots of people who've had fixed-term mortgages at very, very low rates over the course of the next year or so. Those deals come to an end. They've got to get new mortgage rates. It's going to be very, very tough indeed. It's one of those situations... I mean, for savers, of course, this is quite good, and savers have had a miserable time. Eddie Trull is chairman of Disruptive Capital Finance. Eddie, a mortgage bomb, how bad is it going to be for people?
I think it's going to be exacerbated. I mean, we've all noticed interest rates are going up. And they've got to go up to try and keep inflation down. Though I looked at the previous piece, absolutely right. The magic money tree printing of quantitative easing during...
Do you remember modern monetary theory? This is what they were all talking about.
Yeah, well, I'm afraid to say I still remember Tim Congdon. I think he's great. The old-fashioned Thatcherist monetary economics, for me, are right.
Yeah.
But if we think about mortgages, of course, interest rates go up, mortgage rates go up. But the Bank of England, to my mind, is exacerbating that problem. Because they are, at the same time, increasing the amount of capital the banks have to hold against mortgages. Now, that, in layman's terms, means it becomes more expensive for a bank to give you a mortgage.
And therefore, the rate they offer to the consumer becomes less competitive.
Exactly. So the banks have got to put more money aside to put the mortgages out there. It's particularly the case in buy-to-let. The amount that the banks have got to put there is going through the roof. And so that then becomes a doom spiral, in my opinion, because lots and lots of people cannot afford their mortgage, will not be able to afford their mortgage, particularly when their fixes come off. And then they have to sell their house, then the price goes down, and then the whole thing goes into a bad day.
Question for you, Eddie. You've been in and around government quite a bit for the last few years.
Never in.
No, but you've
been... A bit like you, never in.
No, but you've been close and you've been advising.
Yes.
One of the points about Brexit, when it came to money, financial markets, the Bank of England, is that freed from the European Union, we were going to become more competitive.
Yes.
What you're saying is the Bank of England has actually made our mortgage market less competitive.
Exactly.
Why?
It's possibly a scared reaction to problems like Credit Suisse. Now, Credit Suisse ticked all the boxes, but it still had that loss of confidence and went bust. On the one hand. Secondly, what I'm saying, if I can perhaps move on to Brexit. Brexit for the EU in financial services, and we don't talk about financial services very much.
Despite the fact it's our biggest industry.
Right. So the trade surplus, if I can call it that, for financial services has gone up from $70 billion pre-Brexit to $77 billion. So it's gone up 10%. Jolly good. It's a massive export earner.
Despite all the scare stories that we heard.
Absolutely. Now, where's all that growth come from, however? It's from Singapore and Switzerland and the US and Australia, trading with non-EU countries. And the financial services trade with the EU has gone down. And it's been lose-lose. So the EU has lost out on financial services trading with the UK, and the UK has lost out on financial services trading with the EU at the same time as it's benefited from trading with everybody else.
But generally, the industry is relatively healthy, as you say. It's done better than all the scaremonger has said. But it just strikes me that the bank have panicked, have made things more difficult when actually we had the freedom to do the opposite. When you look at it,
it's all the rules, it's all those EU-imposed rules, that make it almost impossible to apply for a mortgage. I mean, I'm not financially unsophisticated, but it was doing an A-level to get a mortgage.
Big picture, we've got inflation running at 8.7%. And growth, I mean, all right, the Eurozone's in recession. We're not in recession, and that perhaps explains why their inflation figure is a bit lower. They also don't have green taxes quite as high as we do, which does make quite a bit of difference. But economic growth in this country is pretty much bouncing along the bottom of zero. Back in the 70s, this was called stagflation. Is that where we are?
It is indeed. And part of that, again, has been sorry to talk about pensions for a second, but over the last 15 years, British pension funds, which used to be great supporters of British industry, used to own a lot of shares in Britain, have been forced by regulation and by rules to sell their equities and buy gilts. And they were forced to buy gilts when the rate of interest you could get on the gilt was virtually zero, was negative after inflation. And they put money after money after money. And then it all came home to roost. They lost £550 billion in September, October last year. And that is money that could have been put to good work by the companies that sponsor the pension funds to invest into the next generation of modular reactors or jet engines or software or whatever the hell it was, and instead was put into a highly unproductive, gilt-edged investment. And so if we can reform the way that the pension funds work and put money to work into productive assets, equities, private equity, infrastructure, and so on, then we can actually reverse that growth cycle.
But that's all well and good, Eddie. That's all well and good. But we've had 13 years of Conservative government.
Yep.
The Brexit vote was 7 years ago tomorrow.
Yeah.
And frankly, what you're saying is they and the Bank of England have mismanaged the whole of this, I mean, really badly.
Yes, there's been in my view, a misplaced view of risk and a misplaced view of reward. So you think, oh, a gilt's safe. A gilt is never safe if the market has been rigged by the central banks. And so people were lured into a sense of false security to invest into safe investments that have turned out to be anything but safe.
Final thought, will Rishi meet his inflation target for the end of the year?
Halving inflation, is that the theory?
Yeah.
And what numbers does that give us?
Well, it would take us down to about 3% from when he made the pledge.
That's quite hard work.
I love it. Eddie Truell, thank you very much indeed. And there we are, folks. I think you've learned, I hope you've learned, over the course of the last quarter of an hour or so, just how badly mismanaged the economy has been. And this under, supposedly, a free market Conservative government. I have no doubt Labour will be even worse. In a moment, let's catch up with what is happening across the sea. The submarine that went down with 5 people on it, 3 of them from the UK. They went down to have a look at the Titanic. There was a press conference not long ago. We'll get the up-to-date news. We heard this morning that sounds had been heard. We'll give you the latest on this dramatic situation where we're told that the people on board have less than 24 hours oxygen left.
First and foremost, I'm a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the people's channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain.
our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christie's, at Drive Time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app, and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christie's, on GB News and GB News Radio.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Well, some of your reactions to my question, has the Bank of England blown it? Nick says yes, they printed money during a lockdown and haven't increased interest rates high enough to get on top of the problem at the beginning. I suspect Rishi will likely increase taxes next and make the cost of living worse. Well, the B of E should have been increasing rates earlier, but they didn't do it. You know why? They didn't see inflation coming. And as for Rishi raising taxes, well, that'll be quite dangerous, I think, ahead of an election next year. And Oliver says, they've blown everything, Nige, including the IMF. What you've got to ask is which government or group of individuals are responsible? Well, Oliver, I think we debated that in the first segment. We've decided pretty much the whole of government and the Bank of England have got things wrong. Now, the news we heard this morning is that this huge search and rescue operation that is going on around the wreck of the Titanic. Sounds had been heard this morning. At the moment, the expedition is being led by Americans, by Canadians. It's based in Newfoundland, and there are some French people working on the rescue as well. British help, for some reason, was rejected. We understand that the sub will run out of oxygen at some point tomorrow. Well, joining me perhaps to try and find out what really is going on is Brent Sadler, Senior Research Fellow for Naval Warfare at the Heritage Foundation. Brent, do we take the news that sounds were heard, tapping sounds were heard this morning, do we believe that to be true?
For this, and until there's a visual correlation with the sounds and the actual submersible, I would be very cautious about saying that it is proof that they found or that the crew is still alive. Of course, the search must continue, and we've had false positives in the past, most recently the search for the Malaysian aircraft that was lost over the Indian Ocean.
Yes, I mean, that's right. It's very, very tough to tell. But, Brent, what we do know is the oxygen runs out tomorrow, so time is now incredibly short. And listening to some of the words of that press conference, the suggestion was that if this sub, wasn't anchored, wasn't attached, wasn't stuck to anything, that ocean currents could have taken it a very long way away.
No, that's a very real possibility. The fact that it's sounding like this was untethered, it's very likely that its ability to move at about 3 knots is not enough to fight against the currents. And if it lost propulsion, it could have been pushed away very significant distance away from where it submerged. The search, however, the search area is pretty significant, and there's probably more false detections we're going to have in the next few days. But until they get submersibles or unmanned underwater vehicles with cameras and with high-resolution sonar, it's going to be very difficult to locate it. Of course, the other possibility is it's stuck in the wreckage itself of the Titanic.
And if it was to be stuck in the wreck, and I know there was a previous expedition that did get entangled briefly with the old propeller of the Titanic, would there be any equipment that could physically go and help to free it?
With the time that's at hand, it would be a very large call to make, and probably one beyond the capabilities that are at hand before the crew runs out of oxygen. That being said, if they could get something down there and attach a cable, for example, they could try and pull it free and get it to the surface. There is risk in that, of course, but with the time that's left, there's an urgency at hand. And I'd also state that even though 96 hours is the nominal breathing or the endurance of this vessel, if the crew, once they realized they were in a problem, took actions to minimize the use of the oxygen, put people to sleep, take rest, and not make a lot of exertions, they might eke out a dozen or so hours more. So there's still time, but it's not a commodity that's in rich supply.
No, absolutely. Brent, thank you very much indeed for your thoughts on this evening. I'll now go to Robert Pizzini, former US Navy officer, Special Operations, and involved with deep sea diving and all the rest of it. Bob, it seems to me that we have a vessel that's gone to do this and high-paying customers, but if it's stuck, there's almost no way of freeing them.
Well, good evening, Nigel, and thank you for having me on. Stuck is one potential issue. Lack of communications is clearly an issue. Lack of propulsion is probably an issue. Lack of navigation is probably an issue. So, there's all these, and then life support. Life support may or may not still be operational. So when you look at all these factors together, I would say the outlook is dire at this point. There is a possibility it could be on or around the site of the debris field of the Titanic, but when you use sonar, active and passive sonar, there's active sonar in particular. There's a lot of debris that could be confused for the vessel if it is indeed on the wreck site.
Yeah, it does, I have to say, all look pretty grim. It would be a real miracle if there was a happy ending to this. From a professional viewpoint, are trips like this wise, or are they really quite foolhardy?
Well, I would say that, the world needs adventure seekers, risk takers. Yeah. That's how we advance technologically, economically, educationally, et cetera. So, I think that everybody on this voyage, if you will, they were fully aware of the risks, and I don't want to judge the validity of this particular mission. I don't know the equipment in particular. What I do know from the press reports is that some very prestigious, highly educated, and highly experienced people, not just tourists, but people who have been to the Titanic many times, who are researchers and scientists, were on this vessel as well. So, it's hard for me to judge the reasonableness of this expedition.
No, but actually, Bob, I'm with you 100%. I think that, all through the centuries, we have explorers, we have risk takers, and it's through that we learn, it's through that we advance. And I'm absolutely with you. Whatever the outcome of this, and it's probably going to be a very sad one, what we don't want are governments stopping people going out, exploring and being adventurers. Bob Pizzini, thank you for joining us tonight on GB News. Well, we'll find out more. It was interesting, wasn't it? Brent Sadler said even with minimising any form of physical activity, they can only eke out a further 12 hours. So I guess by this time tomorrow, we'll know the conclusion. All very sad. We did a bit of an exclusive last night on a hate cleric that had come here from Bangladesh. We were worried about the things that Mr. Abbasi had said in the past about those who questioned the prophet being fit to be beheaded and other things. Well, he did give a speech in the UK last night. I've got some up-to-date news that his event in London tomorrow night has been cancelled. We'll discuss real hate speech in just a moment.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard.
We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think. Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often there will be difficult stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in their home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christys, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Dan Wootton. You can watch me live on GB News Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. And did you know that you can also watch and listen live on our website, gbnews.com. You'll always be up to date on the latest breaking news, as well as enjoying the best stories, opinions, and shows. You can even join the debate under our live player as you're watching. So head straight to gbnews.com on TV, radio, and online. GB News, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
People's Channel, Britain.
Now, let me be clear when I talk about a hate preacher. We are GB News. We are the People's Channel. We believe in free speech. We believe in the right for people to be heard. We believe in free and open debate. And I honestly believe across the output of this channel, that is what you see every single day. We loathe cancel culture. But free speech has its limits, and those limits are the incitement of violence above all. And that was where we were really, really alarmed that this Dr. Inayat Ullah Abbasi was coming to this country and doing a speaking tour. And we talked about this last night because we were tipped off by a GB News viewer. We've been in touch with the Home Office, who just bat us away with a bland response. Now, remember, you know, we've banned people like Geert Wilders, the Dutch politician, from coming into this country. We've banned a couple of Canadian Conservatives from coming into this country. Well, if you're going to ban people because you fear their speech may be insightful, we certainly should have had alarm bells ringing about this man. Now, he did give a speech in the Midlands last night, and from what we've heard, nothing especially controversial was said. But he was due to speak tomorrow in London, in the East End of London, and that event has now been cancelled, and you can see the advertisement for the event on your screens. That event has been cancelled. I repeat the point. There is not an ounce of hypocrisy in this. We want people to be free to speak their mind. We want open debate. What we don't want is violent incitement. Well, joining me is Charlotte Littlewood, Research Fellow at the Henry Jackson Society. I wonder, Charlotte, how many people like Dr. Rabassi come into our country, say completely outrageous things, and we probably never get to hear about it?
I mean, Nigel, that is absolutely the right question to be asking actually here, because what Abbasi is a part of is something called the Khatme Nubuwwat. So he's president of Khatme Nubuwwat Bangladesh. And this is sort of an affiliation of organisations that all believe in an extreme anti-blasphemy stance. What I mean by that is they call for the death of blasphemers, people who insult Islam or the Prophet Muhammad. Now, Khatme Nubuwwat conferences are happening year on year in this country, and people are flying from Pakistan to preach here in the UK, and I know of at least 9 that have made frequent travel to the UK, that there have been frequent questions posed to the Home Office about this. Why are they still coming?
Do you have, at the Henry Jackson Society, do you have many members of Parliament that are prepared to stand up and ask questions of the Home Secretary?
I mean, the Henry Jackson Society is a think tank with researchers, but I can tell you through my PhD thesis that the MP that's worked tirelessly on this is Siobhan McDonagh, because this links heavily to the persecution of Ahmadiyya Muslims.
Yes.
They are believed to be blasphemers, heretics, and one of them was brutally murdered in this country, in Glasgow, in 2006.
This was the shopkeeper, wasn't it?
Yeah. Beaten so badly, every bone in his face was broken.
Yeah, I remember. It was an absolutely horrendous case.
Yeah. And Khatme Nubuwwat praised his death.
I asked the question about members of Parliament because it seems to me this is happening, and we're doing our best here on... I'm doing my best with GB News to try and raise this issue, and you do what you can as a think tank. We don't seem to have much support out there in the media or in Parliament. It's as if everyone's happy for this just to be buried under the carpet, and when we asked yesterday and today for the Home Office specific questions about this man, they won't give us an answer. What do we need to do?
So I think it's really important, and this has been called for in the past, so I really don't understand why this is not in place, but there needs to be an Urdu specialist unit within the Home Office that assesses the likes of these people coming over to speak. And there are red flags.
Hang on, stop. What do you mean, there needs to be? Are you saying there isn't one?
That has been a question that's been raised a number of times, and there hasn't been a straight answer on whether there are Urdu specialists working on this, and clearly there needs to be, and we haven't got a straight answer from the Home Office as to whether there are any. That would be a clear answer to stop the likes of this man coming to the UK. Also, there are clear flags. Khatme Nubuwwat is one of them. And we have Khatme Nubuwwat registered charities in the UK and conferences, flyers calling for the death of Ahmadiyyas with Khatme Nubuwwat on it here in the UK. So Khatme Nubuwwat, get used to that word. I understand these are difficult words, but come on, you're supposed to be some of the most intelligent people in the country, running the country. Clearly not.
Well, I'm deeply alarmed by this, Charlotte, deeply alarmed. Not just about this man, but as you say, you have at least 9 cases of this that have gone on. And thank you for joining me on the programme. And we're going to keep the pressure on the Home Office. We're not just going to accept being fobbed off. We are going to keep the pressure on, and we're going to ask some MPs to start being a bit more robust in asking questions. Today, in Prime Minister's Questions, here was a boast from the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak.
He comes here every week to make the same petty points. We are getting on and delivering for this country. Yes, Mr. Speaker, inflation is a challenge. That's why we are on track to keep reducing it. We are reducing waiting lists. We are stopping the boats, all while he is focused on the past, focused on the politics. It's all talk, whereas from this government and from this Prime Minister, we deliver for the country.
The Prime Minister says we're stopping the boats. Are you having a laugh? Up until Sunday, for the previous 10 days, 3,000 people had crossed the English Channel. I mean, how on earth can we believe a single word This Prime Minister says, this stuff makes me really angry, just in case you hadn't noticed. Something else that makes me angry is the ULEZ expansion. Seems to me that it's the poor that are going to get hit. It's people working night shifts that are going to get hit, and yet Khan seems to want to press ahead. In a moment, we'll ask, how is the campaign against ULEZ extension going? Can it win, or is it doomed to failure?
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not
believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed. So I guess they've always been quite woke. That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Weeknights on GB News from 6 p.m. You'll always get drama.
Please stop, Michelle.
I know, yeah.
Please stop.
Should I just shut up?
Romance.
You like me, I like you. There you go.
There you are. Well, don't tell anybody.
Adventure.
Etc.
That's the whole point.
And action.
Sergeant, the big green, my superstar panel, they're already at it. They're fighting. It's going to be quite a show.
Only on GB News. Britain's watching.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I must declare a personal interest. I live on top of the North Downs. It is a beautiful rural location. I can go out for a walk and not see anybody for an hour. The air quality is brilliant. It's magnificent, but we're right on the edge of Kent County Council and Greater London. And the ULEZ cameras are coming by the end of August, and I am really opposed to them. But of course, it doesn't matter to me because I've got a well-paid job, I've got a fairly modern car, I'm not going to have to pay the charges. But I'm genuinely worried about people I know that live in my area that have got older cars, they're pensioners on fixed incomes, they can't afford new ones. It's going to cost people £12.50 just to go and get a newspaper or to go to the shops. So I am clearly against ULEZ, but my concern is, can any campaign actually stop Sadiq Khan? Well, one man who's having a bit of a go is Nick Arlott, who's the organiser for Action Against ULEZ Group. Nick, you've got a protest coming up this weekend.
We do.
In Marble Arch.
Yes.
Just one observation from me. There have been so many protests, and they've been taking place from groups all around the edges of Greater London. Can't you lot all get together and have a really big protest?
We are all together.
All right.
We
get the small ones do. They're basically for awareness days. The bigger ones that we've had is you acknowledge are a bit in Trafalgar Square. I mean, the main problem is we can get the people together, but people don't know we're doing it. Because every time we appear, say, in Trafalgar Square, Khan turns the cameras off. He's done it every time. You know, we even marched down Whitehall and we had an anti-racism march walk the other way. And we thought, oh, good, we can sort of jump in along beside
But
them.
Sadiq Khan says you're all far right.
Oh, yeah, of course we are, yeah. Mind you, I do have German descent, so maybe. I mean, he actually aimed that. Because I was there at Ealing when he decided to do that. I was actually outside making a lot of noise and when he came up with that stupid remark that backfired on him, which was great, you know, but he's an idiot.
What's your main objection to the ULEZ extension?
Unnecessary. God, there's absolutely unjustified. You know, the only thing he keeps on about is this air quality
What
that
do you
he goes
see?
on about.
He says it'll save 4,000 lives a year.
OK, the 4,000, now where does he get that from? Yeah, I know where he got it from in the first place, but it's years and years ago. I mean, many, many years ago, there was a professor called Anthony Frew, and he was a respiratory expert. Unfortunately, died, but he explained the 4,000 how they come up with it. You know, it's a myth. You know, the question that's not been asked by any journalist, and I don't quite get this yet, is they say they're premature deaths. Well, by how much?
How do you measure it?
How do you... No. What is the time that they're saying that it's been taken off of people's lives? Is it a minute?
Certainly where I live, the air quality is great.
Well, I'm not far from you, so you know that.
And I know that. Now, the big one, of course, is, and we've had Colin Smith, the leader of Bromley Council, in to discuss this, 5 of the outer boroughs are fighting a legal action. It goes to court on July the 4th. You're out doing your protest and trying to make some noise. But can Khan be stopped?
If there's any justice, if this judge actually looks at the case properly, it should be stopped on that. But even then, if it's stopped, I think it's only going to delay it. But I think the point is, with ULEZ, it's a sort of minor thing to a certain extent because it just goes to pay per mile. If he gets stopped on that, it'll go to pay per mile, will affect everyone. He's already talking about everything, everyone.
So the issue here, really, is if people vote for local councils and Khan can completely overrule them,
of course,
there are questions about local demand. No, I get that. I mean, I don't know whether this court case can succeed or not. It's on a very narrow point of law. It's on the interpretation of what the Act of Parliament says, and whether, of course, Transport for London can just put them in.
OK. I mean, I followed his so-called consultation, and, you know, the Gunnings principles that they're supposed to be set to. And he completely flouted them. He had no regard for them whatsoever. He interfered with it during the process. He was caught interfering with it by the GLA, all right? I sat in the GLA before they threw me out, because...
You seem to get thrown out quite a lot of places, Nick.
I do, actually.
Yeah, I gather that,
But he actually admitted to Peter Fortune, who questioned him about the purchasing of the cameras. And he said that he bought them before the process even started.
Yeah.
That alone
tells you quite a lot.
It's predetermination.
Now, talking of the cameras, these cameras are being installed, and I'm going to show you some video footage now.
I bet I've seen
that was posted on the internet a few days ago, and there are a couple of dozen of the cameras that have been removed and disconnected by an individual. He goes on in the latter part of the video to tell people how to do it, and we're not going to show that. But, Nick, this is, whether you like it or not, this is criminal damage. What do you have to say about this man's campaign?
I think desperate times, desperate measures. It's as simple as that. If you put people against the wall, they're going to fight back. You push someone into a corner like he is, what are they supposed to do? I mean, I'm not condoning it, but I can't, in all honesty, condemn it. These people are desperate. They see they're getting nowhere. They see that this is going to come in, ruin countless lives. I have no idea how many lives this is going to ruin.
Well, yeah, because it affects people living in the counties all around the edge of London, because they've got their vans and they're driving into work. And I guess if you're a nurse doing a night shift, it could be 25 quid, not 12 quid, to go to work. Well, we obviously can't, in any way condone law breaking.
Don't condone it.
But I do get the anger, Nick. I get it. Yeah. I see it where I live, and people are very unhappy. Yeah. We're going to follow this court case.
Yeah. And
we're going to follow the campaign.
4th of July, I'll be watching.
And this will go on for about a week, I guess, this court case.
Well, they say just 2 days, 4th, 5th. Is
that it?
That's what they said, 4th and 5th. So we'll see.
And if you lose at the end of all of this, is it the 29th of August? These cameras are due to go live.
If I lose, I was asked this the other day, funny enough, by the New York Times.
Right. It's funny. It's got international.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, it has.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. They're aware of what's going on. And I have to say, the journalist that I spoke to was, I think, quite sympathetic. She actually understood what's going on. So, but as I said to her, when she asked me the same question, I haven't got a clue.
No.
It's as simple as that. Me, personally, I cannot afford a new vehicle. This pathetic £2,000 that they offer you with a scrappage scheme, it doesn't pay for the rest of the vehicle. £2 grand will get me nothing.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, I don't walk much. Right, so you'll see that later where I live.
Yeah,
hopefully. I'm stuck. I do not know what I'll do.
Nick, I get it. I've never ever, and thank you for joining us. I've never ever, certainly where I live, where I live on those borders of Kent and what is now Greater London, I have to say I've never seen local people more energised. And I'm energised by it, even though it won't affect me in any way at all. Now, this is extraordinary. This is extraordinary. US government officials are telling us that the first 3 people known to have the COVID virus had worked in the Wuhan lab. Yes, it was the China virus. Why is David, it's absolutely bang to rights, isn't it? This happened in the lab.
Yeah, what happened not just in the Wuhan lab. Actually, there's 2 Wuhan labs. It happened in the lab that was controlled by the infamous bat lady, Dr. Shi-Jing Li. And it was her most key personnel doing not just coronavirus variant research, but developing advanced coronavirus vectors that would be hyper-transmissible and potentially a pandemic. And they were doing it deliberately. And the funding for that research we put in a declassified fact sheet several years ago at the State Department when I was there, came from the Chinese military, and we believed it had essentially nefarious designs to it. It's only biodefense, really, if you declare it to be biodefense under the Biological Weapons Convention. This was secret research, not declared under the convention, being conducted with classified personnel and classified budgets that we revealed. And now there'll be significant declassified information coming out to illuminate. But these are the people also working on synthetic biological variants. You wonder why COVID's so different than anything that's existed in the past? It's because it's largely biosynthesized. It was never a naturally extant virus that was even in a lab designed to morph or transmit between animals. It was made as a artificial variant, most likely, from the beginning.
Well, David, listen, thank you for that up-to-date information on it. I'm astonished that this isn't a bigger story, but to you and the Hudson Institute, please keep up the great work. Thank you very much indeed. Jacob joins me. Jacob, I'm just astonished by that. I mean, there it is. US government officials telling us that patient 0 did come from a lab in Wuhan. Trump, of course, was calling this out from the beginning, so everyone said it can't possibly be true. And yet, we appear to be so in hock to China that virtually no one wants to talk about it.
It's absolutely extraordinary. I mean, if all this information is correct, then it's even worse than we thought.
Well, it's coming from very high sources.
It's coming from very high sources. And some very respectable people. I had Matt Ridley on my programme, and he hadn't gone for this early on, but he'd been persuaded that it was an option you should think about. And as people think about it more, it does seem as if a lot of evidence is there, and China therefore has questions to answer about its responsibility.
Reparations to pay. That
Well, you would have thought.
Well, that will be the campaign of one Donald J. Trump as he runs for the presidency next year.
Possibly from a prison cell, which may be
well,
rather
I
difficult.
don't think that's going to happen, but we never know. Jacob, what have you got coming up
Well,
tonight?
we're going to be talking about inflation and the failure of the Bank of England.
Yes.
I mean, it's just had its head buried in the sand. It is the ostrich Bank of England. And we have inflation that isn't coming down, interest rates likely to rise further. Other countries have done a better job with monetary policy. Why has the Bank of England got it so wrong?
I think Jacob and I tonight are absolutely on the same page. Andrew out to lunch Bailey, as he was known when he headed up the FCA, the financial regulator, not because he enjoyed a good lunch, well, I wouldn't condemn him for that, but because whenever anything important happened, he simply wasn't there. He is completely and utterly useless and a very poor appointment. Well, before Jacob's show, let's have a look at the all-important weather.
Hello, it's Aidan McGibbon here with the GB News forecast from the Met Office. A change on the way over the next few days, fewer showers and sunny conditions for many. It will turn hotter in the south later, but there'll be some persistent rain in the north by the weekend as well. Nevertheless, showers on Wednesday soon disappearing into the night, and then clear spells by the time we wake up on Thursday. There will be some patchy cloud out there, and temperatures won't fall much further than 13 to 15 Celsius in the south, perhaps the single figures in the north. A fresher feel compared to the start of the week and compared to what's to come heading into the weekend, with some muggy nights returning. But plenty of sunshine first thing on Thursday. As the temperatures rise, we'll see the shower clouds bubble up once again. Again, these will be hit and miss downpours, some thunderstorms out there as well, and most likely affecting northern England into the Midlands, Wales and East Anglia. Away from these, any showers will be fairly isolated. Temperatures hitting 29 Celsius in the southeast, low to mid-20s fairly widely across the UK. And into Thursday nights, we keep that muggy feel. In fact, it's a warmer night to come across the UK, despite plenty of clear skies out there. The clouds will build in the west by the end of the night with some showery rain for Northern Ireland. And in many places, temperatures holding up in the mid-teens and perhaps for somewhere like London, 18 Celsius. So we start off Friday with those outbreaks of rain pushing into western Scotland and Northern Ireland. Showery rain, but some heavy bursts as well. For England and Wales, it's largely dry at first with some sunshine, but parts of Wales will see some showers move in by the afternoon. All this associated with a series of weather fronts which are increasingly affecting the north and northwest of the UK into the weekend. They're going to slide across northwestern parts with high pressure clinging close to the south, and that means that there'll be plenty of sunshine for southern and southeastern parts, and those temperatures will really shoot up to 30 Celsius or more by Saturday.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the People's Channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christie's at Drive Time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christie's, on GB News and GB News Radio.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion.